Rats at chess.com. I'm here with my series of member best games. This game was submitted by Paristar. He explains this was played in a team tournament where he was board 6, and the time control, they basically had 2.5 hours to finish the game, but there was no time control, so hopefully both sides got to spend an equal amount of time. Theoretically, if you get in a lost position, you could just sit there and consume most of the time, but I'm sure they have ways. They've said, don't do that to your opponent. But anyway, that's not important. But it's a good enough long time control where the thought process that you need to play a standard game can come to the forefront and really help your play. Okay, and he's given a lot of comments here. I'll mention them as we go. And here we have the Caro-Kann exchange variation, and he's expecting Panov-Attack. Now, the Panov-Attack goes c4, and is beyond the scope of this video. Normally, what white will do is play bishop d3, and he doesn't, and the analysis to that is also beyond the scope of this video. So, white plays knight c3. Now, is this book? Oh, probably somebody's played it, but it's not really important. Black just needs to stay solid, develop his pieces, and everything will be fine. Okay, so let's see what happens. And this is kind of peculiar, this check, and I think black did fine. He was thinking black rejected knight c6 here because he didn't want to potentially get a backward c-pawn. But really, it's not really a backward c-pawn that white can really take advantage. The c-file is not open. And let me just give a possible line. I'll show you why knight c6 is playable. And let's assume for a moment this is what black is fearing. Let's just say that we'll analyze this position. Okay, yeah, white probably has other moves, but that's beyond the scope of this. We're focused on why black is rejecting this. And this is what my term is fantasy chess. I just pick a line and just try to see how the position plays out. So after knight f3, that's a developing move. Black now plays e6, okay? And then when white develops, black now gets rid of that theoretically backward pawn, right? And if white takes, which he probably won't, but if white takes, then that develops a black piece. And now black has two open files to operate on the queen side, and those look a lot more inviting to use than what white has. Black has center pawns set up, so this looks perfectly fine for white. So let's just back up and address one issue. Suppose white decides he doesn't want black to play c5. Okay, how can he prevent it? Well, knight a4 seems to be kind of silly because it puts it out on the edge of the board. But plays bishop e3. Well, the bishop on e3 is just becoming a tall pawn. It's not active. It's not doing anything for white, and it won't be long before black is able to get what he wants here. As a matter of fact, here's a move I just now noticed that black could have can do right now is bishop a6, and this stops white from castling kingside, at least for the moment. White can block that diagonal, but now you've got white going into retreat mode. Okay, knight e2, that blocks the diagonal. Now black can go ahead with a move like queen b6, which attacks b2 and prepares to play c5. So the point I'm trying to make here is there was really nothing to fear that black felt he had to worry about. So the move he played is perfectly acceptable, and his note is maybe knight c6 is better, but I thought I could probably exchange my bishop, and I don't like to get a backward pawn on c6. Okay, so there's no reason to worry about the backward pawn. And strategically, if black wants to trade a bishop, he has selected the correct bishop to trade. Why, do you ask? Well, it's simple. Look at these center pawns. They're blocked, right? Well, they're on the color of black's darks, or well, let me rephrase that. The white pawn, or the white pawn on d4 is on the color of white's bishop. That would be his only remaining bishop. Okay, this pawn is going to get in that bishop's way, and the black bishop, it has free access it can just zoom right by his counterpart. And there may become a position at some point where this bishop is attacking d4. It'll do it, along this diagonal or along one of these two squares. Most likely b6 if it does it at all. You obviously can't attack on c6 or c5. You're going to lose your piece. And getting to a7 is actually going to require a lot of work. But anyway, it could get there just as easily as b6, I suppose. But you have to stop and spend a tempo moving the a pawn. But one way or the other, what I'm getting at is black's bishop will be attacking, white's bishop would be defending. And which would you rather have? A piece that's tying your opponent's pieces down, or have your pieces tied down to defending pawns your opponent is attacking? Well, it's a no-brainer. So, in this respect, white has made the correct choice. Okay, so let's move on. And now white's saying, okay, fine, you can trade the bishop, but I'm going to develop my queen. Okay, so black plays a perfectly good move. He continues his development. He's got to get castled. Okay, and now here he gives a note. Here I exchanged my bishop because after e6 he can't go to f5 or g4, so he gets rid of his bad bishop. So he does recognize that he has his bad bishop, and in other words, by playing e6, he shut this bishop in, so he's happy to trade it off, and that's a perfectly good move here to trade it off. So this is fine, and here black plays queen d7, so that he holds on to the pawn on b7, and then white continues his development. Now let's just stop and take stock here. What's happened? Okay. White's got 3 minor pieces in his queen developed. Black has his queen and only 1 minor piece. White is better developed, but really there's not much white can do about this. Because the black position is solid as a rock, and that's what happens out of the Caro-Kann. You get a solid position that your opponent cannot bust open and get any kind of an advantage from. It's going to be a long, drawn-out affair. So black will catch up in his development, and everything will be fine here. Okay. So let's continue. Black continues his development. Now here white plays a double-edged move. He castles long. He castles queenside. There was nothing wrong with castling kingside in this position, but by castling queenside, black signals that, okay, I think you're going to castle kingside, and I want to attack your king. So with a rating disparity of 250 points, it might be a bit of overconfidence on black's or white's part. But when you castle queenside, one thing that happens is, even though your intentions are to attack the opponent's king, you have to realize that you've left yourself open for your opponent to attack your king. And that's exactly what the theme of opposite side castling. Both sides launch an assault, throw the pawns and the pieces at the enemy king, and see what happens. Okay, so let's see what happens. Black castles. Now, since white has made a commitment to playing queen or castling queenside, he now decides he wants to keep the queens on the board. But let's just back up for a moment and give one more idea. Let's suppose you're in this position. You're saying, "Oh my God, he's going to attack my king if I castle queenside or kingside. Let me trade queens." Let's see how that works out. Okay. This is the way to do it. Okay, you take, and then he takes. Now look, white has a threat. The threat is to come down here, right? But black has time to deal with it. Okay, knight a6, and but white's going to pick up something here. He's going to get rid of that annoying bishop. He'll still be left with a slightly worse bishop, but now there's a fork. Okay, see the fork? It's attacking the pawn on b7. So even though theoretically a lot of the things still hold true in the pawn structure that I mentioned earlier, where the black bishop, I said, would be attacking the pawn on d4. Well, white now has a few extra options. He can put a pawn on a black square and guard that. Well, yeah, he could have done it in the other one, but that's yet another pawn that gets in the way of his own bishop. And yeah, it's still in his way, but black doesn't have his own dark squared bishop to counter the white one. Theoretically, you would like to use your bishop to get behind the pawns much later in the ending, get it down to c1 when all is safe, and attack that pawn chain from behind. And it's a little harder to do it with a knight. Okay, black can still set up an attack on d4 with his knights, but he's going to have to do a lot of remaneuvering. This knight on a6 is going to have to find his way back to c6 just so he can pressure d4. And this knight is going to have to find his way to f5, and that's going to require some maneuvering. He's got to get to e7. So how's he going to do it? Well, there's several ways to do it. One is knight g4, which maybe gains a tempo because there's a fork. Then you bring the knight back to h6 and hope his bishop can't take it. And then you get your knight into f5. But then the moment you get the knight into f5, it might get kicked out. So black may have to bolster things with h5. How else can it get there? Well, it can get there by way of knight g8 to e7 to g6. I'm sorry, not to g6, to f5. So that's going to take a lot of moves, and white has several moves of his own to do things. So this, by trading queens, black eliminates white's middle game winning chances, but he also eliminates his. And as I mentioned earlier, it's the games are double-edged because both sides have opposite castled, and it's perfectly okay for black to play this type of position. Just because your opponent upside castles on you doesn't mean he's going to win. Okay, it's okay to have this, especially in a Caro-Kann position when the black king side is quite safe. Okay, so let's back up. What white did was, well, black castled, and then white retreated his queen and kept the queens on. Okay, so now I've said what I've said. Now, black says, now I completed development, and I would attack on the queen side and my opponent on the king side. Okay, well, actually, black hasn't entirely completed his development, but then again, you could argue he has. See, both sides are castle, both sides have their queens out, both sides have all their minor pieces out. The question is this rook on a8 developed? Okay, and yes it is, no it isn't. Okay, since we know black's going to start throwing pawns forward, if the intention is to pry open the a file, then it is developed. Okay, so, but really it's a moot point. Black is developed. We're just looking at technicalities. So, does black need to develop another? Does black need to put that rook, say, on c8 for it to be developed? Well, maybe it's one of those cases that I've said before of right rook or wrong rook. Let's look at this position. It's white to move, but if you're going to put a rook on c8, which is the correct rook? Okay, let's think about it for a second. Which is the correct rook? Well, there's two candidate moves to choose from. If we put the rook on a8 on c8, where can this rook go? It can go to e8 or d8, and it's running into his own pawns. So if we put this rook on c8, then this rook preserves the option of operating on the a file. Okay. Now it doesn't mean rook ac8 is a bad move, but I believe it's the wrong rook. Okay. It's the wrong rook simply because you've cut down the options that you have. Although, again, it's a perfectly playable move. Black would then be threatening knight b4 and rook c4, and then he's going to double rooks on the c file. So it's not like a mistake where you create a permanent weakness in your position, or you blunder material away or miss an opponent's threat. It's nothing like that. Not that sort of mistake. It's the kind of thing that just gives you fewer opportunities later. The stronger the player they are, the more solid moves they play, the more opportunities they create for themselves, and not only for themselves, they set you more ways to fall by the wayside and succumb to their talent. So you want to learn from. It's a good idea to play better players and see how they win their games against you, so that you can in turn learn these techniques. And my objective is to show you how to analyze and think these things over, and try to play the better move. But once again, nothing is wrong with either rook to c8. It's just I think that if you're going to put one there, in this case the f rook is the better rook, and all for the reasons that I've said. Okay, so now this move has been staring here for a while. It's now time to play it. There's a tempo on the queen, and I do believe black came up with the correct choice here. But I don't think white played the correct move here. I think he should be taking with his bishop, just to keep that bishop scope and its mobility open. And black now missed a better move. And let me explain his thought process that he gives here first. He says, I move my knight to e8 because it could be trapped if I play knight to h5, and then once white retreats his bishop to e3, then the threat of g4 could win it. And the only way that black can deal with that is have to weaken his pawn structure a little bit by g6 so that the knight has a flight square. So what black played was knight e8. But as I said, I don't think 13d takes e5 was a particularly good move for white, and black missed a very nice move. And here I'll show it to you. Queen c7. Man, I should have quizzed you. And this just takes advantage of a pin. And if it weren't for the fact that f4 falls with check, this would lose a piece, because but instead it's going to cost white a pawn. So the important thing about this move is that it clears d7 for the black knight. Now the knight has a new and better square to go to. And from d7 it's attacking e5, and it's threatening to go into c5 and attacking the white queen. It's also threatening to go to b6. And from b6 it's suddenly got outposts of c4 and possibly even at some point a4 at its disposal. The knight has much more mobility on d7 than it got on e8. So now you might ask, well, okay, let's see what's wrong with this. Well, like I say, it's going to drop a pawn. This is with check, and white certainly doesn't want to trade queens because he's going to go into ending a pawn down. And then black just happily takes back with the bishop, and black has a clear pawn ahead. White can still advance his pawns on the king side, but he's going to be playing this position a pawn down. So let's back it up and look at one other possibility, and that other possibility is to play knight b5. This is a little tricky. Okay, so now black needs to maintain the pin, queen to d8, or b8 rather. But you see, there's one thing that's changed in this position now, because the knight on c3 is no longer securing e4. Unless there's really nothing white can do about black getting knight e4 in. And yeah, you see, yeah, well, f3 stops it. Well, fine. Go ahead, play it. You're still not threatening my knight. And if I can kick your knight out now and then hop my knight back to d7 and be threatening to do all the things I was talking about just a minute ago. And if white secures the bishop, let's just say we'll pick this move. Now suddenly black has a new square for his knight. Although there's nothing wrong with putting it on d7, I'm just showing black has a new square for the knight, and here it's nice and centralized, and you're giving yourself the option of going to c5. So maybe knight d7 is a better choice here, but again, you know, this knight on d7 is just doing a lot of nice things for black. You know, like I say, pressure on e5, tempo with knight to c5 or knight to b6, trying to anchor it in on c4 and invite white to make some weaknesses in his pawn structure around his king. Excuse me. Okay, so unfortunately black missed the move, but what he plays is fine. You know, once again, you don't have to play the master moves to win a game of chess. You know, but when you can start finding moves like this, then your game just gets so much easier to play. Okay, so I think bishop takes is the best move. Now black, but white took with the pawn, and black came back knight to e8. And again, there's nothing wrong with this move at all. It's just that I think the other move was better. White still doesn't gain anything out of this. The game is basically even, but Black would have had a wee bit more counterplay to activate his pieces than White appears to have, and Black still conducts the game fine. Again, you know, if you don't make the best move, don't worry about it. You know, if you have a playable game, the good moves will still be there. There may not be as good a moves that could have come up, and you'll still have to work. But this is how you're learning. And you know, when you get experience playing these games, and then when you get experience tearing your game apart, like I'm doing here, I'm tearing his game apart, and giving him some ideas. Every game is full of potential. And this is why analyzing your games is so much better than looking at a master's game, because you're focused on your strengths and your weaknesses and what you can do to improve. And you're associating it with your style of play and trying to find moves that you find tasteful to your style of play. And again, if something's wrong with the way you analyze, in other words, if there's an error in it, your opponent will show you. You know, but if you get this position in an online game, you know, the turn-based chess, then I would expect someone not to play a move in 5 minutes, but to sit down for whatever time you can, half hour, hour, 2 hours, and then you would uncover Queen C7. Now, a move like that more or less comes naturally to me because I'm experienced. You guys, it takes a while. I mean, when I was lower rated, I wouldn't see a move like that. I wouldn't consider a move like that. You know, you say, my knight's attacked, I got to deal with it. You don't stop and think of the little tactics that can come up in the position. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with knight e8, and here comes the pawn storm, and he says the attack begins. Now it's Black's turn, a5, and so now we can argue this rook is developed. Okay, here comes another pawn, and he says I'm trying to open the. Now Black comes up with a plan. He tries to open up the f file, and to get the f6 d squares for his knight, he wants to be able to have some mobility for the knight, and this is a really good idea. Normally you don't want to make moves that weaken your king side, and this does do that. But he's going to have to get that knight back into play, and it's going to take a while. Knight c7 to a6. Then it's finally getting back to where we wanted it to go, to c5, or maybe in this case now you have an option of getting to b4, perhaps. But White gets 3 moves too to make while Black's doing that, and Black let's just have a look. Let's just look at a possible line. What's White going to do? Well, let's see. Let's try this move. Okay, it's going to come eventually. I'm not saying it's the best move. We're just going to try it out. Now let's get this guy running. And now where do we want to go with the knight? Let's go to c5, and simply because it's got a little more potential there. It's eyeballing e4, and if we can get rid of that white knight. Okay, so now we got to deal with the queen. Can't keep it on this diagonal, so let's go for broke. Let's put it over here, right? That's a move that'll scare you. If the h pawns are gone, you lose, right? Okay, Black to move. Here it comes. Now, if you play h6 here, you're going to be met with g6, and the white attack is over. So we got to try this move. Okay, and now you kick this. Now, unless White sacrifices a piece, he's going to have to deal with his knight. So let's put him on d1. Let's just try to keep a defender of b2 here just for a moment. I just want to see what happens here. Now, how are we going to continue this? Well, let's shove our pawn, okay? And now here's the correct way to do it. Okay, but is it the correct way? We have to be careful, okay? We do have to be careful here. There's a potential sacrifice on h6. I'm trying to lock up the pawns with h6, but a lot of times, you know, you would want to open up with excuse me, you'd want to defend with f takes e6, h takes g6, and g6, shutting off the h file. But now White would have an open h file if he sacrifices his bishop. So you probably have to play h6 here. Now it's seeing this pawn sacrificed or bishop sacrificed on h6 isn't as critical as it might be otherwise. Okay, I explain it. Let me just show it so it's a little clearer. If here and here, it looks like black has secured everything up, but white has this sacrifice, and I think black is. There's a good chance black is busted here. There's basically how do you defend against both h7 and h8? You get a spite check. Well, yeah, you're going to have to lose a piece. You can defend it, but you're going to lose a piece doing it. Okay, queen here. But, well, wait a minute. No, you didn't lose a piece because white sacrificed a piece. Okay, so there's the defense, but you're going to be down. You're going to be down some material here, and you don't have. You're down some pawns. Two of them. One of them. Let's see. White has 4. Black has 4 pawns. White has 6 pawns, and the attack isn't over yet. Who would you rather play here, white or black? I think the answer is obvious. You'd rather be white, and proving white wins this is beyond the scope of this video, but we certainly don't want that. So that's why you don't play. In this case, f takes g6. You have to play h6 immediately. Now the bishop sacrifice has a little less weight to it because the h file didn't open up. White could still try it though. I mean, it may not be. Well, no, he can't. The moment you, well, maybe he can. Let's see, queen e3, bishop g5, pinning, but then you get f4 in. Now we got to move the critter. Now, at some point, if white wants to attack g5 again, he's going to have to get rid of the danger to his queen. And so, on that pin. So let's try this. Okay, now let's do the same thing for black. Let's let him try the same kind of attack. That makes it interesting, right? Now maybe black wants to sacrifice down there. This will certainly make interesting chess. Well, one thing is it's white's move, and white can ignore a lot of these things. Okay, with f5. Now, if black checks on a2, white will probably just run his king to a1, and he'll sit there. You don't want to take that pawn and make your king a target. He'll just sit his king on a1, and the black pawn on a2 is acting as a white pawn. It's helping shield the king. But anyway, you can get crazy here, though. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Let's see. Takes, king here. Suddenly, you got to watch out for some of these tactics here. Well, we don't have enough to try to mate the white king. Well, let's just put the king here and let black try this move. I'm just trying to show you what happens here. White sacrifices, and the white sacrificed a rook for this, but wow, look at those. Look at those pawns. So who's winning here? Gosh, who knows? Let's see. Can black survive this? He's got to play moves like f6 and maybe allow this other monster pawn in here just to give his queen some lateral mobility. Meanwhile, white's threatening all kinds of things. He's threatening queen h6 followed by h7 mate. I don't want to defend this position. If you're really skilled at analyzing deep and over the board game, you could sit down and work this out, and I'm sure a super grandmaster could do it. Well, I'm not a super grandmaster. If I sat here for another half an hour, assuming like this was an online game, I could solve this position, and you could too. Even if it took you 2 or 3 hours, you could solve that. And this is how you play online chess. For instance, turn-based games. You sit and you work out all these possibilities, but. And this is just an idea just to show you how you analyze a position, because there's so much about chess, and just doing this, just simply doing this, teaches you so much about analysis, far better than playing over a master game, reading a chess book, watching a lecture, whatever. When you're analyzing your games like I'm doing here, and I'm giving you ideas, that you don't expect to see everything. Just see what you see. That's all. That's all we ask. Just see, what do you see? I'm able to see this. There's probably a lot of stuff I missed. Anyone that follows me knows I make one move blunders all the time. Well, so what? There've probably been some in this game. But the idea is that you analyze, and theoretically, when you there went my screen, you don't make the blunders when you actually play the game. You can avoid those. Anyway, this is a nightmare. White's probably winning. Black has to survive this because his attack has run out. So let's back up. Let's back this up where all this took place. It was one interesting fantasy line, wasn't it? And you can uncover stuff like this. I did. I had not looked at this position before. I do not. I figured these things out just by moving the pieces. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't have to be perfect. I've explained all that. Why? It's just analysis. You're trying to decide. You're looking at the thing, evaluating the positions, and seeing what happens. There's no need for me to be perfect with the exact sequence of moves. It's just how to analyze, because if you analyze deep enough, you'll find the flaw yourself. You won't have to have somebody come and show it to you. Every one of you is capable of beating somebody 300, 400, 500 points above your online rating in a turn-based game, if you'll analyze your games like I'm doing here. Okay, so let's back up. Kind of fascinating. Oh, I'm going forward again. Sorry. Kind of fascinating way to look at a position, isn't it? There's all kinds of possibilities here. And all I did was I examined the alternative. Black came up with this idea, which is perfectly good. I think it's perfectly fine. I said, what about the other move? And let's see what happens. And it certainly wasn't forced, but it was one potential line. The myriad of possibilities are more or less almost infinite. And even if I was to sit and work everything out, I would still, we'd be on this video all day, and I've said that before. So anyway, F6 is a perfectly good move because it does what he wants, and this is a simple plan. He wants to activate the knight. Hey, he didn't get it to the right square. He didn't find the way to get it to D7 as I showed, but he's being consistent. Black is being consistent. He sees he wants to get the knight to either D6 or F6. So good job here. Okay, so F6. What does White do? Transfers the queen over. Yeah, that fits the plan. Now let's see the note here. The queen no longer controls the B5 square, so I push the B pawn for his own attack, which makes perfectly good sense. Okay, now here come the white pawns. Now, what should Black do here? Okay, I'm not going to carry out a lot of possible candidate moves here, but one is simply to play F5. Now, if you do that, you've almost locked the pawns up, and if White plays G6, then you can maybe play H6, and you've got the whole king side locked up. Except there may be some danger with taking on H6. So I'll leave this for Peristar to sit down and work on that. But I think, though, that the move he picked was fine. That's just another alternative. He follows through with his plan. He wanted to get F6 and D6 under control for his knight. So this is a perfectly good move. But now the white bishop has a little more activity, but it's not really going anywhere. Okay, Black's got this position covered pretty well. And a nice thing about the black position too is he's getting his own attack underway. Okay, so now offers to trade off that active bishop, and then White just shoves his pawns up, and then here comes the black attack. This is all perfectly logical, perfectly well played. And he brings his rook to a semi-open file. Now, here's the question. Earlier I said right rook or wrong rook. Was that the... But, well, in this case, Black can't move his king rook there. But in this position, I think it's the right rook, even if the knight was gone. If you're going to do that, this was a better move because for the moment it's good to have a black rook on F8. And Black does try to get some activity on the F file. We'll see that comes in handy here in a little bit. Okay, he even explains the idea. Okay, knight d4. My opponent attacks the e6 pawn, and I exchange the bishop and increase the pressure by rook e1. So I exchange the bishops. He's afraid Black will or White will get some play against e6. Okay, Well, it's really nothing black has to worry about. And let's see, what was the move that black missed? Was it this move or the next move? I took a quick look at this. Okay. Well, this gets rid of the pressure on E6, obviously, by taking. But black really didn't have to worry about the pressure on E6. Let's see. I'm trying to remember why. Let me think. Okay, bishop on the knight's on D4, and he does take on E5 now. But did he? And maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just imagining something. Okay. Well, okay, I know what it was. If he takes on D6, he's not. Well, first off, he's not attacking. It's black's move. Okay, that's the first point. So white's not threatening to get a rook there. Okay, and it's black's move. Now the question is, did he have another? The only question is, did he have another move to continue what he's doing? And one of them, I think, is just rook c4. And then if let's see, if white plays this rook over, then let's see. I'm trying to remember this. Bishop takes. Now you want to take back with the rook, so that you have that pressure. Well, it's not really a lot of pressure on e6. Black has resources. There was something else in there, and I can't quite recall it, but it's not all that important. Black's move took that opportunity away. He took here, and this is a perfectly good move, but I had something in mind by keeping the bishop on. I don't remember. But you see, now the position has changed a lot, and I think at this stage, it's gone from an equal game to a little advantage for black, and I think the reason why is the white attack is pretty much ground up. It's stopped in its tracks. Okay, white can still shove some pawns, but no matter how he does it, black's gonna be able to cover the key squares. Maybe the way to do it for white was to try to continue to h6, and if black gets g6 in, there's an f6 hole. But it's going to require a lot of maneuvering for white to get that knight in there. The knight's got to D or F3 to H2 to G4. Okay, it's going to take white some time. Black has plenty of time to deal with this and make sure that doesn't become a nuisance. But anyway, it's black's move. It's not white's, so knight C7 and H5, following along the line of what I said. And here, let's just trade it off. Now, did white miss anything up? Well, as I said, it takes a while to get that ideal position, the pawn to h6 and the knight up to g4. And while you're doing that, while white is doing that, black has time to get his own stuff going. And there's a good chance black's going to find some good moves to play. For instance, on h6, we don't even have to play to g6. If he takes, we take back at the queen, and we've covered in a lot of key squares. And if we want, we could maybe take this knight first, and if white takes with the rook, then we get our g6 in. White could play his Zwischenzug after knight takes d4. He could play g takes h7, forcing queen takes, and then bring the rook up. But black should be fine. He's getting activated. His rook will come up to f5, and there's threats on a couple of pawns. Black has nothing really to worry about. And aside from that plan, black can also just try to go about his business and attack the white king. So there's plenty of options for black here. I think black's a little better off. Anyway, he didn't play h6. He took the knight, and let's see, what was white's note? Let's see, by trying to exchange the last minor piece so that I have at least equality. Well, black, you're already a little better, and the perspective for attack on the white king. Well, he still has an attack on the white king, and that knight was a useful defender for the white king. So but definitely now black is better, and this next move pretty much cements it. Rook f5. Somehow I didn't comment on these moves. On g6, black just shut the king side in. It's over, and there's no more sacrifice on h6 unless you do it with the knight. But I already talked about the knight maneuver. For it to sack on h6, it's still got to get to g4, right? Well, it takes time. Anyway, takes, and white was attacking e6, but it was illusion. Now, whose position's better here? Let's compare them. Both sides have a king that is in somewhat kind of danger. I mean, this pawn looks awful menacing, controlling these squares. But really, the black king is safe. White has no way to get at it. This black rook is active. It's attacking a pawn, and it's got this nice open file. Okay? This rook has got this nice open file aimed at the enemy king. This white rook, it's they've got lateral placement, but forward they're running into brick walls. And the white queen, what's it attacking? It's attacking a rook that's defended. The only trick that white could hope for is that if the black queen moves off a defense of d5, that white could make an exchange on. See, I played it accidentally. Imagine this queen being gone. Say it gone back to a6, for instance. Then on pawn takes, queen takes, right? Anyway, we didn't play rook takes d5. And then the other clincher to show black is better is the white king is not out of the woods here. It's not safe at all. Okay, black has the better position here. Oh, he did that thing again. Okay, so white goes in defensive mode. Now everything he has is defending. What does black do? Now he says here, in this position I had a good feeling because I have the threats and white is only defending. So we've said exactly what I've been saying. So you're right to have a good feeling, and to be complimented that you recognized it. Because some people, they don't realize exactly why they have some kind of an advantage. Okay, so let's see. This is a perfectly good move. It threatens mate, doesn't it? Yeah. Sure looks like it to me, and it also threatens to win a pawn on a2. So the black attack is going. The white one has been ground to a halt. So white sends his queen over. It's pretty much all he could do. And now black is basically winning. He's going to win that pawn on c2. Okay, so let's see what happens. He takes, and then white tries anything to survive here. Tries to get some exchanges, but here unfortunately black, I think, made a mistake. What he played is okay, but it gave white some potential to try to save the game, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. What would you do here? Think about it. You might want to pause the video. I'll give you a clue. You're going to take the pawn on b2. Which way do you take? Okay, one is okay, one is better. So go ahead and pause the video. Okay, resumed. The correct way to take is with the rook. Black took with the pawn. The point with taking with the rook, okay, let's just do a quick count up here. Black has 6 pawns, white has 4. Right? Black's 2 pawns up. You're threatening to take another pawn on b3. The only thing that white could possibly muster up in this position is to seize the f7 square, double his rooks, and then try for a mate or a perpetual check. Well, that's a lot of moves. Okay, so let's analyze it out. Let's try it. That's the only threat you have to worry about. And when you're playing a game, you can analyze it out. Okay, what's the worst thing he can do to me? He can play rook f7, double his rooks, and perpetual check me. So some people, they'll panic and they'll reject it right away. And sometimes it's good reason, sometimes it isn't. Let's see what analysis shows. So we've given white his only chance. Now it's black's move. Now I've said black can take this pawn, right? I've said that. he has some happy choices here too. He can start shoving another pawn up the board and keep the rook on the 7th. We'll try rook takes here first and see if it holds up. Okay, what's white going to do? Well, he's going to have to do what I said he has to do. Okay, now how do we want to continue? Let's shove this lower pawn. Okay, looks like white's accomplished his aim. He's going to get a perpetual check. So from this perspective, maybe we were wise to reject taking the way we did. But black has improvements here. Let's go back and play some of them. Okay, black spent 2 tempos he didn't have to spend. He stopped and took a pawn on b3 and he shoved an a pawn. Let's shove the d pawn instead. That saves 2 tempos. Okay, let's go back to what white was trying to do. Now we're gonna put this rook. You want to try d7 this time? Okay, fine. Check. What do you do? Well, you have one legal move. Here it is. Check. We have 2 legal moves, but one drops a rook, so we got to come up here. Now, black to play. What's he do? White has no threats whatsoever. You play c2, and you're going to get a queen. So the best white could do was try to get a perpetual check. In the first case, it looked like it worked. Then we just improved on it, and quickly black wins. So that was the most active defense I could see for white, and I just refuted it. So the question is, what happens if white tries something else? Well, anything's for one. Black is excuse me. Black can still go back to that idea as long as it's safe. Okay. And you have the luxury too at this moment that you're ahead 2 pawns and about to win a 3rd one. So that was the better move. Let's look at the move he did play. Okay, he took with the pawn. I mean, it looks nice. You're getting a double check. You're getting a pawn on the 7th rank. But unfortunately, what happens? The reason why it's not so good is that now black is actually kind of tied down a little bit to holding that pawn. I mean, this looks tremendous, but the black threats are gone, and now this black pawn on b7 is acting as as kind of a shield for the black king. Black would love to be giving some checks and driving the king over and getting some exchanges and so forth. But anyway, white took a rook, but white has some chances to get active here in his position, and he doesn't do it. Since now the black rook is tied down. I mean, it's a good rook, but it's tied down. Now here he notes, after this move I thought that the game is drawn because he wants to play rook c3 and threatens rook c8 mate. So here, just a couple moves after missing a better move, black has feelings that that the game will end up in a draw. Okay. And I think he's justified in thinking that. But he comes up with a good move. He stops the rook from going to c3. But you know, white has some resources here. He could try, oddly enough, b4. And what's the point of b4? Well, the point of b4 is that what's black going to do? If he takes, it's really not an extra valuable pawn, and it's suddenly the white rook starts getting active. Okay, black cannot play rook pawn to d3. White just takes it. So let's activate the king, and boom, here we are. Now the threat is to come back here. So maybe white did have a draw. It's possible. It's beyond the scope of this video. But you want to try to get your pieces active in an ending, and even if you're down a pawn or two, you got to get your pieces out. So in rook endings, you can often be a pawn down and have a draw. Here, black is down, or white is down 2 pawns, and he may have a draw. Okay, so white kind of missed a chance, and black opened the door for him by not taking on b2 correctly. But anyway, as I say, d4 stopped it, and although b4 was a better move than what black did, than what White did. White played Rook D3, and now the black rook has to retreat to hold D4, but something's gone wrong here. We're giving back the pawn on B2, and now the rook has assumed a new defensive role on the 4th rank. So we had a kind of it looked good on the 7th rank, but it was really defending that pawn on B2. Now it's defending a pawn on D4. Anyway, it works, but black has to work for his point now. Okay, so King A3. White is going for the pawn, so he's going to go after and win the E-pawn, and that's a good strategy. You know, you can give up the D4 pawn, but the white pawns are all weak. Okay, so now black's only up a pawn, but no, black's up 2 pawns, but he's got a couple of passed pawns on the board now, and the white king is out of play. And hey, fine, trade rooks into a losing game. But you see here, white made a let's see, was it this game or is it another game I'm thinking of? No, it was another game I was thinking of. Someone missed a chance to trade. It was another game I just looked at recently. Someone missed a chance to trade rooks and go into a winning king and pawn ending, but he didn't realize it was winning. Clearly, if white takes this, he's going to lose this ending. Let's look at it real quick. Okay, takes. Now he can take here. Now what does black do? Well, he starts shoving his pawn, obviously. Make a queen, and we can stop that pawn. Should be no problem at all to stop that pawn. Just put the queen on G8. And you don't even have to go. You can go through the maneuver of bringing your king over, or just make another pawn, and eventually white's going to get tired and resign this position. So anyway, it's good to analyze these out, make sure you're accurate. You don't want to suddenly go into drawn position. So here he says, if my opponent exchanges rooks, the pawn will take back and can never be stopped by the white king. And okay, so white realized that and came over here. And now it's black's turn. Now he gets rid of the counterplay that white was trying to get on the pawn on G7, and there it is. And black is now completely winning, and the remaining moves are just trivialities. White's going to lose this. It's a very nice. The rest of this is handled very nicely by black, and not a perfect game, but certainly much stronger than 1529, and I would gauge the strength at more like 1729 and higher, with potential to go higher. So black has a lot to be proud of in this game. I never know how long these videos are going to be because I enjoy making them, and when there's a lot to them, I'll take the time and do it. You know, if there's not much to it, it could be a short one. This one's now at approaching 53 minutes. That's fine. They're here for you to learn from. If you watch them, you're going to learn a lot about chess. And then just learn how to analyze your games, take them to your turn-based games, analyze those, and you're in the right program. We'll have plenty of opportunities for you to play long turn-based games with longer time controls. Cut your game load down. Don't worry about your rating. Work on your analysis. You guys are going to do great. I want to thank everyone again for the time, and take care. Bye.